We begin in Brazil, where President Jair Bolsonaro spoke publicly today for the first time since his re-election defeat. But he did not concede the election and did not call off protests by his supporters. Jane Ferguson has our report.
It was as close to a concession speech as Brazil was going to get. In his first appearance since losing the bitterly fought election nearly 2 days ago, Brazil's soon-to-be former president, Jair Bolsonaro, struck a proud and defiant tone, emphasizing his party's gains in Congress.
Our robust representation in Congress shows the strength of our values: God, homeland, family, and freedom. We have created many leaders throughout Brazil. Our dreams continue more alive than ever. We stand with order and progress. I have always been labeled as anti-democratic, and, different from my accusers, I have always played within the limits of our Constitution. While President of the Republic, this citizen, I will continue to follow all commandments from our Constitution.
Bolsonaro, a close ally of former President Donald Trump, shocked many with his silence after the race was called for his leftist opponent, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, known as Lula. But in Bolsonaro's 44-hour absence, his supporters have continued filling the void with noise. Truckers flooded hundreds of major roads in most of Brazil's 26 states, protesting his loss and perpetrating the false notion that the election was fraudulent.
The current popular movements are the fruit of indignation and a feeling of injustice about how the election process took place. Our methods cannot be those of the left, which have always harmed the population, such as the invasion of property, destruction of heritage, and restriction of the right to come and go. The right has really emerged in our country.
And though Bolsonaro refused to mention Lula's name, his supporters had plenty to say about him.
He should be in jail and not contending for an election. Brazil is ours. We don't accept such mismanagement. A thief like Lula who robs our nation and today wants to come back to power.
Some knelt on roadsides to pray for the outcome's impossible reversal. The highways they blockaded shut off access to the country's largest airport and started to impact the essential transportation of food and fuel. But the Supreme Court soon ordered federal highway police to begin forcibly removing people.
Since Sunday, we've been working on this protocol that was passed, starting with negotiations, as well as dialogue, and if necessary, the use of shock force.
Across the world, leaders reacted to the victory. President Biden called Lula, who led the country for 2 previous terms before being jailed on later overturned corruption charges, to offer U.S. backing. His office said he commended, quote, Brazilian democratic institutions following free, fair, and credible elections. Back in Brasilia, it was left to Bolsonaro's chief of staff to say what the outgoing president could not.
The president has authorized me to begin the transition to President Lula.
That transition completes 2 months from today, on January 1st, 2023. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Jane Ferguson.
Israel has held national elections today, and former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu may be returning to power. He's still on trial for corruption, but exit polls show his right-wing bloc had a stronger than expected showing and could win a bare majority in parliament. This is Israel's 5th election in less than 4 years. The man accused of attacking House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul, pleaded not guilty today to attempted murder and other state charges. David DePape appeared in a San Francisco court. He was ordered held without bail. DePape also faces federal charges of assault and attempted kidnapping. Families in Florida got the chance today to confront Parkland school shooter Nicholas Cruz. His 2018 attack killed 17 students and staffers. At today's sentencing hearing, some cursed Cruz while others wished him a painful death. They included Eric Wikander, whose son Ben survived but needed 7 surgeries, and Deborah Hickson, whose husband Chris died trying to save students.
We hope that you, the monster who did this to our son, endure a painful existence in your remaining days. Whatever pain you experience in prison, unfortunately, will be a fraction of what Ben endured.
I wish nothing for you today. After today, I don't care what happens to you. You'll be sent to jail, you'll begin your punishment, you'll be a number, and for me, you will cease to exist.
The hearing concludes tomorrow. A jury could not agree on a death sentence, so Cruz will be given life in prison. Halloween night gun violence has claimed the life of Grammy-nominated rapper Takeoff, one-third of the group Migos, and born Kirsnick Khari Ball. He was fatally shot outside a bowling alley in Houston early today. He was 28 years old. Hours earlier in Chicago, a drive-by shooting injured up to 15 people, including 3 children aged 13, 11, and 3 years old. There have been no arrests in either case. In Ukraine, Russian rockets and drones struck more cities and towns today. Meanwhile, in Kyiv, pockets of power and water service were restored after Monday's barrage. Thousands of people across Ukraine are enduring rolling blackouts. Officials say Russia's intensified shelling has destroyed about 40% of Ukraine's energy systems. Top officials in South Korea have apologized after a crowd surge killed more than 150 people celebrating Halloween. Police received multiple warning calls Saturday night as tens of thousands of people crowded a nightlife district in Seoul. Today, the head of the National Police said officers failed to intervene.
이번 사고를 지켜보면서
I feel a heavy responsibility for the disaster as police chief. I feel an infinite responsibility for public safety, and we will do our best to prevent such a tragic event from happening again.
Meanwhile, hundreds of abandoned shoes and other personal items were laid out at a badminton court in Seoul. That allowed the victims' families to collect their belongings. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi today visited the site of a collapsed pedestrian bridge where 135 people died on Sunday. The disaster took place in Modi's home state of Gujarat. He called for an extensive investigation into the cause of the collapse. New breakouts of COVID-19 are roiling China. Authorities held visitors inside Shanghai Disney for hours today. Park security formed lines to prevent anyone from leaving until they tested negative. The testing regime includes more than 400,000 people across the city. Back in this country, the Supreme Court rejected Senator Lindsey Graham's bid to avoid testifying in a Georgia probe of the 2020 election. It centers on attempts by then-President Trump to overturn the state's results. Graham is a South Carolina Republican. He argued that as a senator, he cannot be forced to testify. The court said he's free to object to individual questions. Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts put a hold today on turning over former President Trump's tax returns to a congressional committee. That gives the full court time to weigh Mr. Trump's emergency appeal filed on Monday. The House Ways and Means Committee is investigating his compliance with tax laws. And on Wall Street, stocks struggled a day before the Federal Reserve is expected to raise interest rates again. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 79 points to close at 32,653. The Nasdaq fell 97 points. The S&P 500 slipped almost 16 points. Still to come on the News Hour, Representative Liz Cheney talks with Judy Woodruff about threats to American democracy. U2 singer Bono discusses his long career in music and activism, plus much more.
This is the PBS News Hour from WETA Studios in Washington and in the West from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism at Arizona State University.